This week on the Pressure Cast, Final Fantasy 15 might not be completely open world, Pokemon Go loses over 15 million users, and the PlayStation 4 Slim gets leaked online. It's Monday, August 29, 2016. Everything happy in the world of video games is here, now, on the Pressure Cast. Hey, Pressure Pals. Welcome to the 145th episode of the Pressure Cast. VideoGamesAreDumb.com's weekly news panic that posts every single Monday on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, TuneIn Radio, Google Play Music, and America's longest-running independent newspaper at ShepherdExpress.com. My name is Colin Tanner, and I'm caffeinated and ready to ramble you about some gosh darn video games, but in case you've never listened to the show before, that doesn't really surprise me. I've sent you a number of Facebook invites and you never respond. But in case you've never listened to the show before, each week the Pressure Cast slices up the latest video game news, past, present, and future, and delivers it right into your ears in 2 hours or less through several sensational segments. If you want to contact the show, you can email pressurecast@gmail.com. You can text or call 954-947-7377 and leave a text message or voice message to be read on air. Or you can even tweet at PressureCastPod. Use the hashtag PressureCast so I can figure out if you're spam or actually a question for the show. Otherwise, I'm not sure if I should be answering this one. Do you want to see my butt? I'm not sure. Has anyone else been getting that on Twitter? I don't know if you guys use Twitter, but I'm getting a lot of spam lately that's just a picture of an ass, and then it says, do you want to see my butt? And then it has a bunch of like bit.ly links. It seems kind of sketchy, because also the other tweets were want sex now, click here. Seems weird. It seems a little suspicious if you ask me. Anyway, we do need to get the show on the road, and I thought we should start this off with an email. Yes, we have more emails in the last half of the show. We actually have a voicemail that I'm very excited to get to, but let's start off with this email because it pertains to the first story we're going to talk about. It is from Sean, or Showan. I'm not really sure. It's Showan. How would you pronounce it? Write in and let me know. Here's what he says. Hello, Pressure Crew. Yep, it's me, Sean. It appears that PlayStation news is leaking left and right before Sony's September 7th press conference. Who are we kidding at this point? The bottom of the barrel is just about off. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen the PS Slim pics and vids all over the interwebs, like the rest of us on Earth, or any other planet that has good enough reception to pull a broadcast from Earth. What planets are you talking about, Sean? What planet are you talking about? I want to know more about these planets. The only way that this thing sells is if it's $199 and comes with 2 games, Uncharted 4 and the Nathan Drake collection, perhaps. Anything above $199 price point, and you have to ask yourself, why? If it sells at $250, the first thing people will think is for an extra $50, I can get an Xbox One S. Sean, I'm going to stop you right there. I love Xbox. I really do. I love PlayStation 2. I love PlayStation also. I also love the PlayStation 2. I don't think that's the first thought in a lot of people's heads, but let's continue. Sure, most people don't have 4K TVs, but they sure have nosedived in price in the past few years and still falling. The cheapest 4K Blu-ray player on the market that also streams Netflix and Amazon in 4K and also upscales games in 4K. He's talking about the Xbox One S. And Amazon, not a bad deal for a starting point of $300. Sure, someone can walk into a store and literally buy a gaming device that does 4K and 4K TV for $1,000, but this is not a bad deal. And if Neo there's some typos in here, Sean. Come on. If Neo gets announced and released by the end of this year, the PlayStation Slim is dead on arrival. It's either go for the 4K device, Xbox One S, and future-proof, or go for the Neo and get better everything else across the board and be future-proof. Maybe Sony should go for $179 for the PlayStation Slim then. LOL. His words, not mine, ladies and gentlemen. What are your thoughts on this? Well, my thoughts, Sean, is that we have to get on the train. Chug a chug chug chug. Here comes the train. Tooty toot toot. That's right, it's time for the Hype Train. Feel the PR vibrations as we barrel towards Video Game Satisfaction Station on the Hype Train. This is the part of the show we talk about all those upcoming video games to get you hyped up to spend all your money and become a video game guru. Sean wants to know the PlayStation Slim. What the dealio? Well, let's give you a bit of backstory. Last week, exactly last week, Eurogamer received some images of the PlayStation Slim. They reported on it. Not only that, but there was a website over in the UK called Gumtree, which is kind of like eBay, kind of like Craigslist, secondhand sellers, essentially. And someone posted that they had a PlayStation 4 Slim, which is kind of weird because Sony hasn't announced the PlayStation 4 Slim, and there hadn't been any leaks about a PlayStation 4 Slim, so to have this sudden console in existence and being able to be purchased was quite shocking. Somebody bought it. Eurogamer actually went over to their house and they took a look at the console. They booted it up. It's really a PlayStation 4. They can confirm it. It's got a very interesting shell. It looks more squarish than the original model. There's still a little bit of the dip in front, like you saw in the last one. The kind of what's the word? Like an acute angle. It's still a little bit there, but nowhere near as much. So what else do we have to talk about here? Well, the Wall Street Journal said that they're going to announce 2 PlayStation 4 consoles on the September 7th event, so presumably that is the Neo, because they already confirmed its existence way back before E3, and the PlayStation 4 Slim. But let's get to Sean's point. Who needs a PlayStation 4 Slim? What are Sony thinking? Those dummies? Why would they even do this? Well, okay, if you want an answer, it's actually not that complicated. If you listen to anything from Kind of Funny Games, they've pointed this out a number of times. When they announced the PlayStation 4 Slim, all right, when they announced the PlayStation Neo, it's going to be more expensive than the current PlayStation 4. It has to be. It can't be $350. I mean, maybe it can be, but I doubt it, because that means they'd be selling it at a loss. And right now, if you look at Sony's financials, they can't really afford to do that. So what are they going to do instead? They're going to announce the PlayStation 4 Neo, and they're going to announce the PlayStation 4 Slim, a budget model, kind of, that will allow people to keep buying the system without feeling like they've been left behind. And what I mean is, once you announce the Neo, if it's outside of your price range and it costs more than you expected, you're going to be slightly disappointed. And there are people out there that still want a PlayStation 4. They have yet to buy a PlayStation 4. I'm sure if you go on any message boards, Reddit or any message board, you keep seeing people asking, should I buy a PlayStation 4 or should I wait? You keep seeing this question because even though the PlayStation 4 has had a hell of a run for its first 3 years, there are still lots of people that haven't picked up the system yet. There's still lots of people that are playing the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. I mean, not to mention Japan hasn't really adopted the PlayStation 4 in full force. I mean, it's at the top of the sales charts every couple of weeks, but nowhere near to where the PlayStation 3 was back in the day. So you've got basically an option where you can either get a new system, in quotes, the PlayStation 4 Slim, or you can buy the PlayStation Neo. It's just covering both markets, and that's the whole idea. I do want to address what Sean said. The whole idea of $199. No, never. That will not happen. They will not announce $199. I will be blown away. I'll admit it. If I'm wrong, I'll admit it. But there is no way they are going to announce a $199 PlayStation 4 Slim. Never going to happen. Unless the PlayStation Neo takes off drastically, and then they're going to cancel the PlayStation 4 Slim. That's the only scenario. But I think you're going to see the $300 to $350 price for at least 2 years. At least 2 years. That's what I imagine. As for the Xbox One S, can it really take advantage of this? We have to wait and see. I mean, the Xbox One S is doing fine on its own. I think that's happening independently of whatever's going on over at Sony. We're just going to have to wait for September to really get some full details here. I just don't think Sony is going to... at least I hope they're not going to have some sort of knee-jerk reaction to the announcement of the Scorpio, because if they do, that means that they don't really have any sort of long-term plans. And if you change long-term plans very quickly, you end up with something like the Sega Saturn. A really great system, but it makes it difficult for developers. So I don't know, Sean. Not so sure about that. Yeah, either way. Toot toot. Let's talk about the brand new controller for the PlayStation 4 Slim. The controller was revealed online once again from a user known as Shortman. The difference in this controller is that it has a little slit at the top of the touchpad. Yeah, and it has the same light as the light bar. You know, on the PlayStation 4 controller, on the back of it, there's that light bar that's kind of triangle shaped. Well, now that light is seeping through at the very top. And some people are assuming that this is going to inform the player about their status. Because in some games, the light will be blue, and then when you take damage, it'll be red. I don't know how many people look at their controller while they're playing their game. I know I personally don't. I think once you've played video games for longer than a year, you really don't need to look and check the buttons or anything. So I don't know. I don't see why that would be the case. If anything, I imagine that this is probably for PlayStation VR. PlayStation VR, it uses the camera of the PlayStation 4, and that camera reads the light bar. And I've seen some games that are going to be taking advantage of the tracking of the controller, and having that extra slit, especially being extra precise, I think would really help out keep up with that tracking when you're in VR. That's just my guess. There's no real changes to the controller other than that. As for the light bar, I hate it. I've always said I hated the PlayStation 4 light bar. I wish they never put that thing in there. I understand why they did, because they probably knew they were going to be doing this PlayStation VR thing in just a few years. But all in all, like, I was so happy when they introduced that firmware to dim the light bar. Do you remember that? There were actually people saying they wanted to turn off completely. Yoshida said that was impossible. Now we know why. As for the tiny slit, I'm going to go with it's a VR function. Toot toot. More PlayStation news, and then I swear we're going to be moving on to some Xbox news. They have announced PlayStation Now for PC. I'm not sure if it's available in America yet. I know it is available in the UK. What's interesting about this is it also has a $25 dongle that allows you to plug Bluetooth into your PC to use the DualShock 4. And this is honestly, I'm not really sure why that exists, because you could just use any sort of Bluetooth device, a Bluetooth stacker, and just introduce your PlayStation 4 to your PC. Whatever, that's what they created, so good for them. What is PlayStation Now? Well, this is a streaming service for games. It's fueled by Gaikai, who were purchased by Sony, I want to say back in 2012. And what happens is you're playing PlayStation 3 games that are being streamed from a server to your home, and then your inputs are being sent back to that server. So you're not playing a virtual PlayStation 3. The PlayStation 3 exists. This is getting really complicated, but it's just it's sending all the inputs to a server hub. And the thing about PlayStation Now is I've played around with it briefly, maybe I don't know, a year ago when they had that open beta. It seemed fine. I didn't notice any major issues, but there's definitely some conflicting reports. Some people say they have absolutely no problem with the PlayStation Now service. Other people say that there's a lot of lag and that the frame rate freaks out. Thing is, this is just playing PlayStation 3 games, and because of that, you might be disappointed to see the frame rate is, well, a PlayStation 3 game. PlayStation 3 was generally 30 frames per second, and even then, there were some games that dipped well below that. I was talking to a friend of mine, and he said that he played Dead Rising and was very disappointed by the way the game looked, or it was Dead Rising 2. And I recall Dead Rising 2, not a good frame rate. So if anyone has some real impressions of this, let me know. As for the PC market, I think that's really smart. It's the exact same service. PlayStation Now already exists on Vita, PlayStation 3, and PlayStation 4, as well as certain Sony brand televisions. Why not take that service and introduce it to PC? It's already there. It's not going to cost you anything extra. You're just going to make more money. I believe it is, let me see if I have the price points, $20 a month, $45 for 3 months, and I think they even had a deal where it's like $90 for a full year. It's not a bad deal, all in all. But my issue is that this $25 dongle lets you use a PlayStation 4 on the PC. I don't like that. I don't like that at all, because the thing is, these are PlayStation 3 games, and some of them require functions that were only in the DualShock 3. Like, I wonder what's going to happen when you play Killzone 2 and you need to use the 6-axis. Now, I know there's a 6-axis in the DualShock 4, but I'm not sure if it's going to completely register the same way. And what about things like Metal Gear Solid, the HD collection? 2 of those games use pressure-sensitive buttons, and there are no pressure-sensitive buttons, analog buttons, on the DualShock 4. So hopefully there's an option that allows you to use a PlayStation 3 controller. Even if you might not love that controller, it's the best way to play PlayStation 3 games. I can promise you that. Anyway, toot toot. Okay, wait, one last PlayStation story. It has been confirmed that 100-Foot Robot Golf will be released on October 10th, which is 3 days before PlayStation VR, making it a launch title. I think that game's going to do very well because it is so direct with what it is. I've said this before. If you're going to make a VR game in this day and age, you got to keep in mind, VR is a new thing. I mean, it's existed before, but never like this. If you're going to make a VR game, make it as direct as possible. Like Bus Driver. Oh, I know what I'm going to do in this game. I'm going to drive a bus, or, I don't know, Hamburger Maker. Oh, okay, I'm going to make a hamburger. Or War Criminal. Oh, okay, I'm going to murder people. Whatever. Gun Shooter. Make the name as simple as possible. 100-Foot Robot Golf. Okay, I assume there's going to be robots. They're going to be very tall, and I'm going to play golf. And I have a brand new VR system. Perfect. I know everything I need to know about the game. Look at Ubisoft. Eagle Flight. So direct. I think that's tremendously smart. Toot toot. Let's talk about the free games with gold for the month of September. Yes, on Xbox One and Xbox 360, you're going to get some new games next month. On September 1st, Xbox One is going to get Earthlock Festival of Magic. It's a brand new RPG, so a brand new game, and it looks fairly interesting. That'll be going until the end of September. From September 16th to October 15th on Xbox One, you can get Assassin's Creed Chronicles China. I played that. Didn't love it, didn't hate it. It felt kind of like a watered-down version of Mark of the Ninja, which if you haven't played Mark of the Ninja, shame on you. Check out that game. On Xbox 360, September 1st through the 15th, you can get Forza Horizon, the very first one, which, there's already Forza Horizon 2. Do you really need to play the original one again? I mean, Forza Horizon 2 is so good. And then there's going to be Mirror's Edge, September 16th through the 30th. That's kind of neat. I wonder if that means that Xbox 360 games are going to be added to EA Access, the Electronic Arts service on Xbox One. I mean, it kind of makes sense if they can start adding backwards compatible titles. Food for thought. Is the original Mass Effect in EA Access? I know that's backwards compatible on Xbox One. Not sure. So month all in all. I am looking forward to playing Earthlock Festival of Magic, though. That looks very neat. Toot toot. They have announced yet another Xbox One backwards compatible game. If you own an Xbox 360 copy of Call of Duty 2, you can now play it on your Xbox One. Hooray! Fantastic news. I can't believe this. That is literally a launch title. That is a 2005 launch title. Though reports are saying that game has much better frame rate on the Xbox One. So there's some improvements for you. Relive the joys of World War II right now. Toot toot. Xbox One is going to be getting a presumably PlayStation 4 exclusive next month. That's right. Jonathan Blow's The Witness, which of course appeared on a number of Sony stages at press conferences for years, is going to be coming to the Xbox 360 on Xbox One on September 13th. What the hell, man? I can't believe it. It came out 8 months ago and suddenly just boom, it's announced. This is so weird to me because remember there was Xbox One had the game inside and then out of nowhere it was announced for the PlayStation 4. It's just like, oh yeah, that's coming out next week. And Jonathan Blow's doing the same thing, like, okay, The Witness, see you in 2 weeks. What is up with these independent guys? They just announce these things out of nowhere? Well, good news for Xbox One owners. That is one of the best games of the year. You definitely want to check it out. I did play quite a bit of it, but that game is very time consuming and you need to really focus just on that game, and I always have to move on to the next thing to review, so I don't know. I did an episode of Worth It on The Witness. Not a very good episode in hindsight. The audio is all screwed up and the video looks like garbage, so don't watch that. Toot toot. Halo Online. This was a multiplayer Halo game for PC that was launched in Russia in 2015. It's being canceled. According to Vkontakte, I don't know, it's basically like a Russian version of Facebook. The developers have said, we told you that the break would be temporary and that the game would start again soon. Like you, we've been waiting for news about development and hope for an announcement soon. But for the past 6 months, our colleagues at Microsoft have not made decisions on the future of the project. Now, only one thing is known. The game in its current form will not be released. Womp womp. It's kind of sad because there were actually some people in the United States that hacked the game to play it here. You had to do that because it locked out your IP address if you just tried to play it naturally. It was just for Russia. This leaves a lot of people to wonder, does this mean that they're going to be releasing Halo 5 on PC? There were a lot of rumors about that. You can build your own Forge maps and test them out on PC already. Why not the full game? This might be a step in that direction. I mean, after all, why would they want to release a lesser version of Halo on PC when they can just release Halo on PC? Just don't expect to find that in the Steam store anytime soon. Let's move on. Toot toot. Final Fantasy 15. I played the demo. I'm sure you played the demo, and I'm sure you've watched a lot of the videos. One thing that makes this look so different from many other Final Fantasy games, outside of the MMOs and Final Fantasy 12, is that it's so open. An open world game. Well, maybe not quite. According to director Hajime Tabata, if you played through the first half and only the main route of the second half, I believe the estimated playtime sits around 40 to 50 hours. He went on to say that the game will tighten as it continues. Thing is, this basically means, according to some reports, that the game starts off very open, and then as it progresses, it gets narrower and narrower. So it's the opposite of Final Fantasy 13. Okay, not really. But this makes me wonder, and this is serious. In case you don't know, Final Fantasy 15 was announced over a decade ago as Final Fantasy 13 Versus. Yes, it was originally part of Final Fantasy 13, and then it just stuck around in development hell until it was, rebranded as Final Fantasy 15 and brought into modern gen. I have to wonder if this game at some point was going to be totally open world and development just kept going and going and going and going. And then the original director was taken off the project. Tabata came in. That's a known fact. But I wonder when Tabata came in if he was like, oh my God, this is not going to work. We should just take what we have here. It's all good. This is good stuff. And let's just make something a lot more linear. Why not? That's my guess. As for how this will affect the game, that might not be the worst thing in the world. I don't know about you, but when you play an open world game, you start off exploring everything and going everywhere, and it's very exciting. But towards the last third, you're just mainlining it to all the side missions and all the main missions. That's how I played Deus Ex Mankind Divided. So I assume that's how a lot of people kind of adapt to their open worlds. I mean, maybe they'll have a new game plus where you can go back to that first chapter later on. Why not? Worst things could happen. I'm just glad that it's finally coming out so we can move on to Final Fantasy 16. I'm kidding. Toot toot. NBA 2K17. This should be in Pocket Talk, but we're going to talk about this in the hype train. 2K Games has announced the Prelude, which is a brand new app for your phone that allows you to create your own character, make some choices, in what they are calling the Ultimate Sports RPG. So if you want to create your character, what they look like, their height, their playstyle, their position, you can do all of that in this app before the game launches, and then you can take that character and use them in My Career. Not bad. We talked a few weeks back about how, and that was actually in the chart park, so we're just jumping all over the podcast. We were talking about how 2K hasn't quite nailed their mobile strategy yet. Whereas so many other publishers have created exclusive games, 2K tends to just sort of re-release the same thing from a console on a phone, like they do with the Grand Theft Auto games or even 2K. They have just 2K16, the phone game. I don't think this solves that. This is more to gear people to pick up a console or PC version of the game, which it's coming out on everything. It's coming out on Xbox 360, Xbox One, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, PC. It's not a bad approach. I think it's smart, but hopefully they start, working on some real mobile games because they need that revenue. And this is a free game. There is no revenue from this, unless, of course, people buy the game, which that would do quite well for them. But people already buy the 2K series. It's a neat idea, though. I don't want to take anything away from that. It's very creative. Toot toot. Ubisoft has another expansion for The Division. It's called Last Stand, and it was supposed to be out before the end of this year. They have delayed it. Why? There's actually a very interesting reason. They put out a statement on this. We have put a lot of energy into constantly improving the game. While these efforts have allowed us to bring more gameplay variety, the overall experience has been affected by lingering issues that have accumulated since release. With update 1.4 in the works, it has become clear with your feedback and our observations that our priority should now be on improving the core game experience. For this reason, we have made several adjustments to our development schedule. In other words, they delayed an expansion, paid DLC, to fix the main game. Now, I like The Division. I actually played quite a bit of it a few weeks ago when there was just nothing out. I just sat down and played more of The Division and listened to a bunch of podcasts, and I'll say, I love The Division. I think it's a great game. Does it have issues? I guess, you know, none of them bothered me all that much. I was hooked into the game. But there are some people that were burned because they saw some issues there. And if Ubisoft is willing to take the time, hunker down, resolve that, and announce that, and if the player base goes back and they see the difference, and this is really important, if they put out this patch and it barely changes anything, that's a problem. But if they actually change a few things and it improves the overall experience for the people that want to love The Division, well, that just increases the odds they're going to buy the DLC. So I think it's a very smart move, and I don't know, I admire it. I will say that is admirable, and but then again, I like Ubisoft, so most people don't, so I don't know. Toot toot. United Front Games. I adore this studio because they made one of my favorite games of 2013. I think it was 2013. Sleeping Dogs. Well, they're back, and unfortunately, it's not with Sleeping Dogs, but they do have a brand new project called Smash Plus Grab. It literally has a plus sign. Maybe that's supposed to be and. Come on, United Front Games. That's a plus sign, not and. If you want it to be and, you should write and. Either way. This is going to be a multiplayer game that takes place over 15-minute rounds where you play a looter. You go downtown, you smash up windows, and you kill people that are trying to steal other things. So basically, it's a competitive game. Whoever gets $500,000 is the winner. That's really the whole game. And that might be slightly disappointing, especially because Sleeping Dogs was this giant, open, immersive world. But if you watch this trailer, it basically looks like... God, how can I phrase this? It looks like Suicide Squad. I know, the movie's not terribly good, but whatever. Suicide Squad meets The Warriors meets State of Emergency. There's some charm to it. I don't know, that you actually have a scene where this guy who has spikes coming out of his face uses a battle axe to fight like some bank robber. It looks like fun. There's no release date announced, but that's basically it. Okay, toot toot. Wreckfest. Not Breakfast. Breakfast is great, but Wreckfest might be awesome. That's right, Bugbear Entertainment have announced a brand new racing game for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Previously, this was confirmed for PC, but it is now coming to consoles, and you might even be able to check it out early on the Xbox One through early access. What is it essentially? Well, all you need to know is Bugbear made other games in the past that have very similar styles, known as the Flatout series, which is kind of like Burnout. And Bugbear has shown off a bunch of their tech in the past, the damage models for cars. It's very impressive. Very, very impressive. They've worked out their physics, and watching the way that metal bends when it smashes into an object, it's very impressive. I gotta say, I'm excited for this. I think that they have a hell of an opportunity. Right now, there are no smashy racing games. Final Fantasy. Need for Speed 2015 certainly was not very, smashy. Burnout hasn't been around for a few years. Flatout is made by a different developer, and the games they put out are not very good. Bugbear Entertainment could make a big move with this, and you can even purchase the game in advance for $25. They're doing this weird tier system that gets you early access and DLC, blah, 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 blah. You can check that out at bugbearentertainment.com. Be there. Toot toot. Oh, God. This story... I don't even really want to talk about this, but it is newsworthy, so we're going to. Allison Road is back in development. Yes, Allison Road. In case you don't remember, this was a game that was announced after PT was canceled, or Silent Hills was canceled. Everyone was very disappointed. So someone announced Allison Road. It's basically PT, first-person horror game. Everyone got very excited. They went to Kickstarter. They got a lot of money. They canceled their Kickstarter. They joined up with Team 17, the same publisher behind Worms, the Worms series. And then they backed away from Team 17. So what is the dealio? Well, the creator of the game, Christian Kelser, had this to say. It did take a bit of soul searching to find the drive again to work on Allison Road and to simply make a call on what to do next. After the setback, I took a bit of a break from working on it and reevaluated all the work that had been done so far, the whole journey, so to speak. I started making a few, in my opinion, necessary changes to the story and the flow, little bits and pieces here and there, and before I knew it, it sort of naturally came back to life. In September, it'll be 2 years since an idea out of a notebook started to become life, and some people have, I don't know what he's trying to say there. He's not a writer, he's a developer. Dude, I don't know about this. What publisher is going to pick this up? You announced the game with a publisher and then you backed away from them. That's kind of weird, especially for Team 17, who have a very good reputation when it comes to developers. So, I'm not sure how that's going to work out. On top of that, and this is probably even more important, you can't really go back to Kickstarter, can you? Because you went to Kickstarter, people tried to support you, and you walked away from them. This is really sketchy, and the game might be great for all I know. I don't know what actually happened there. There might be a very reasonable explanation, but I would not put money in this if I was a publisher or if I was a Kickstarter. I just wouldn't. It's just too weird. Anyway, toot toot. Jazzpunk is coming to the PlayStation 4 on September 20th. This is a game published by Adult Swim Games. It is one of my favorite games from 2014. That's all I'm going to say about it. I don't want to give anything away. Just go look it up if you'd like. That game is magic. That game is magic. Just buy it. Trust me. Jazzpunk. It's very, very funny. Toot toot. Speaking of Adult Swim Games, they have announced that they are publishing ToeJam and Earl Back in the Groove. This is a sort of spiritual sequel to the very first ToeJam and Earl, which was a isometric third-person exploration randomly generated game. Very ambitious for the Sega Genesis. I believe it came out the same year as the launch of the Sega Genesis, maybe a year later. The art style on this is absolutely gorgeous. You have to look at this. It looks like 2D animation, like the very, very fluid characters. Now, I wasn't the biggest fan of the original ToeJam and Earl. I actually prefer ToeJam and Earl 2, which is a platformer, and the fan base hates. Whatever, haters. I'm just being real with you. But like I said, there's a passionate fan base for this series, and I'm sure they're going to be delighted to see this title. I can't imagine it doesn't do very well. If you're wondering where's Sega in all of this, they're not involved. The creator of ToeJam and Earl, he owns the rights to ToeJam and Earl. Sega got left out in the cold on that deal. So, pretty smart from him from a business angle. Toot toot. We need to talk about the games that are going to be coming out this week. On Tuesday, the latest expansion for World of Warcraft, Legion, is going to be out on the PC. So you can expect a lot of subscribers are going to be re-upping around then. Verdun is going to be out on the Xbox One and PlayStation 4. That is a World War I shooter, I believe. I don't know. Some people seem excited for it. Hatsune Miku Project Diva X will be out on the PlayStation Vita and PlayStation 4. Those games are kind of fun. I played one of those not too long ago, and I found it pretty enjoyable. I have to imagine the PlayStation Vita version would be slightly better because you'd be reducing your inherent input lag. Because it's, the Vita version is designed for the input lag of the Vita. Whereas, PlayStation 4, it's whatever your TV is. Food for thought. The Turing Test is going to be out on the PC and Xbox One. I believe we saw a trailer for that at E3. It looked like a first-person spooky sci-fi thing. God Eater 2 Rage Burst is going to be on the PC, PlayStation 4, and PlayStation Vita. I know a lot of people have been looking forward to this. Wasn't the biggest fan of the original God Eater, but I have been told by many people who have played the import copy, This is much improved. Attack on Titan will be out on the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 3, and PC. I will be doing an episode of Worth It on that. Don't know if it's going to be a full review or just an impression video. Stay tuned. Striker Vector EX will be out on the PlayStation 4. Astro Corsa, it's a racing game, will be on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. I'll be doing an episode of Worth It on that. Armello will be out on the Xbox One. The Final Station will be on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. I don't know what the Final Station is, but it has a place on the hype train. I saw the art for it, and it was a train with a skull on it. Going right for my heart. Corpse Party, yes, a remake of the original Corpse Party, will be out on the Nintendo 3DS. Champions of Eteria will be out on the PC. One Way Trip on the PlayStation 4 on Wednesday. Neurovoider will be on the PC. Tara, Echoes of the Astral Empire will be on the PC. Lots of just made-up words. I like made-up words too, but come on. Take them out of your video game title. Use real words like Deus Ex. I don't know. Shiny will be out on the PC on Thursday. Earthlock Festival of Magic will be on the Xbox One and PC. That will be free for Xbox Games with Gold members. Axiom Verge, one of the best games of 2015, will be out on the Wii U. Definitely check out Axiom Verge if you have not. Fantastic Metroidvania. Emphasis on the Metroid. And on Friday, Seasons After Fall will be out on the PC. Boop, boop. That's going to do it for the hype train. But guys, summer's almost ending. Why don't we spend more time outside? In fact, I know a place that's always warm with the glow of cold, hard cash. That's right, it's time for... The Chart Park, the land where money grows on trees. Yes, the Chart Park. This is the part of the show where we talk about all the legal, business, and financial news in the video game industry, and we find out which fat cats of Wall Street will tip their top hats towards Lady Luck. We have to start off with the most controversial news of the week. This is shocking, everybody. I hope you're sitting down. I hope you're with a loved one, because you're going to burst out into tears and run around the room. And look, I'm here for you, okay? We need to get through this news story together. All right, you ready? Here it is. Sony has raised the price of PlayStation Plus. I'm sorry, I'm getting really emotional. From $50 a year to $60 a year. That's right, everybody. They have raised the monthly price by 88 cents. I mean, the monthly price is still $9.99 if you buy it by the month. But if you buy it for the year, you're going to be charged 88 cents more. That's the same price as a candy bar. Those bastards. Well, you know what? They better give us some real good games. No more independent games, because independent games are just automatically bad for some reason. I don't know. I only appreciate games with big publishers. I want knack. That's the only thing that'll make me feel better. Ridiculous. You're insane. Stop acting like children out there. I saw people online freaking out. Oh, I'm going to cancel my subscription. Yeah, buddy. Sure you are. I'm going to sell my PlayStation 4 and get an Xbox One. What? Xbox Live Gold costs $60, and it's cost $60 for years. Sony's just playing catch up. You have to understand, they were not the most dominant console on the market. They did not have the most dominant service on the market. And so, they had to be cheaper. They had to be, more palatable for casual people. And you know what? Now that they've got everybody, they're going to raise the price. That's business. That was the plan all along. That's how these things work. And the whole thing about knack, guys, why do you want knack so much? I mean, I don't think it's nearly as bad as everyone else says it is, but that's really what you want for free, knack? I think Sony's going to give it to you. I seriously do, just to shut up these whiny children. These price increases only affect Canada and North America, where I think the price is going to be $70 in Canada. Over in Europe, they already had a price increase, I think, last year, so no price increase for them. And by the way, you're paying to play online. The free games are just a bonus. That's it. Okay? You're expected to actually buy games. Sony wants you to buy games. They don't want you to just pay for PlayStation Plus. It's ridiculous. Anyway, moving on. Speaking of PlayStation, they have introduced a two-step account verification system. So in case your account for PlayStation Network gets compromised, they will send you a text and then you have to send that code back. Pretty much every other major service has this. I've got to say, Sony, you're a little late to the party. You think for a company that had widespread hacks last year and widespread hacks, with PlayStation Network a few years ago, this would have been like a day one instance for PlayStation 4. But no, it took them a few years. It is a good service. This is more of a PSA. Go take care of your PlayStation account. Seriously, especially if you have a credit card tied to your account. I don't. I only use the cards. I actually go through Amazon, buy digital cards, and then put them through the PlayStation Network because I don't think they're very safe. And people have a tendency to attack video game companies for some reason, so be careful out there, everyone. Let's go over to GameStop. This is some very interesting news. They have their second quarter earnings report. The quarter, of course, ended on July 30th. Really not so good. Pretty mixed. When I talk about if things are up or down, I'm comparing it to the second quarter, so the exact same time period last year, 2015's second quarter. That's what we talk about with the up and down. The total global sales are down 7.4% at 1.63 billion. That's not terrible, but, noticeable for sure. New hardware sales are down 33.3% to 324.9 million. So they lost a third of new hardware sales. There's a reason, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. Used game sales down 3% to 542.5 million. Once again, not a huge deal there, but digital business down 12.7%. No numbers were given for that. They just said 12.7%. Mobile and consumer electronics, they did a little bit better. They were up 43% at $203 million. That's impressive for GameStop. Mobile and consumer electronics aren't really what I think people go to GameStop for, but I think they are increasing that market. They do allow people to trade in their phones and laptops now, so good for them. I'm not sure how many of those devices they actually sell in store. I thought that was more of an online thing, but I don't know. If you've ever purchased a used electronic from GameStop, let me know how it turned out. Email, call, text, all that stuff. Tech. I'm not really sure what the difference is between tech and mobile, but tech rose 54.6%, bringing $175.9 million. Collectibles also saw a significant increase, totaling $90 million. So all those extra pop figures and whatever, $90 million worth of revenue there. The CEO of GameStop, Paul Raines, pointed out that the recent announcements of Scorpio and Sony's acknowledgement of the Neo hurt their console sales. And he's right. If you think about it, they're down a third, and that doesn't really make any sense. It's like the momentum is just dropped out of nowhere. I would have to estimate that a third of everyone that plays video games is in the know. They know what's going on, right? I'd say about a third do, especially when you look at what games sell on the NPDs. That makes sense to me. And right now there are people that are going, never mind. I will have to wait. When it comes to PlayStation 4, they might be able to resolve that by next month. When it comes to Microsoft, this might be a real issue. If Scorpio, becomes more, its existence is more aware to more consumers, that might hurt console sales as the year goes on, and that would be very unfortunate. Hopefully, the Xbox One S and all the sales they've received are kind of the result of that, where people are getting a little bit confused almost and going, oh, this is the new Xbox. At least for Microsoft's sake, I hope that's what's going on. I'm actually kind of surprised that GameStop didn't do better, that they didn't get more people in their stores, especially because Uncharted 4 came out in the past 3 months, Doom came out in the past 3 months, Overwatch came out in the past 3 months. Those are very big titles, but maybe this shows an increase in digital sales. Moving on, Nintendo has just purchased the Japanese distributor JetsNet for $46.5 million. I'm sorry, they've acquired 70% of the company. JetsNet is going to be partnering up with, okay, here we go, Ajoka. I don't know. A statement release said JustNet and Ajoka have been large-scale companies dedicated to handling Nintendo products in Japan for many years. So they're no strangers to them. They've been working together for a very long time, selling mainly video game systems through their national widespread distribution network. The subsidization and acceptance of assignment of business will unify Nintendo's product development acumen with JustNet and Ajoka's robust stocking and sales networks to form a supply structure that can meet consumer demand in a timely fashion. I'll admit it, I don't know what this means beyond face value. There's nothing I can really read into here, but I do find it kind of ironic that they're like, oh, we want to get this into consumers' hands and blah, blah, blah. Nintendo, you are aware that you have a long history of creating artificial demand by restricting shipment units. Like actually having the consoles made and being like, nope, don't ship them out until the last one sells out. Artificial demand. Just saying. Kind of funny. ZeniMax, you might know them as the owners of companies like Bethesda and id Software. Yes, Bethesda doesn't just own themselves. ZeniMax owns them. And there was a point where a man named John Carmack from id Software, he now works at Oculus, he used to work with ZeniMax, and then he left. Well, ZeniMax is suing Oculus VR. And why are they suing them? Well, here's why. Hold on to your hats. This is actually kind of shocking. Instead of complying with his contract, we're talking about John Carmack here, you know, the creator of Doom and Rage and many id Software games, Wolfenstein. He's the guy that, you know, he coded everything. He came with the technology. Instead of complying with his contract, during his last days at ZeniMax, he copied thousands of documents from a computer at ZeniMax to a USB storage device. He never returned those files or all copies of them after his employment with ZeniMax was terminated. In addition, after Carmack's employment with ZeniMax was terminated, he returned to ZeniMax's premises to take a customized tool for programming VR technology belonging to ZeniMax. That itself is part of ZeniMax's VR technology. They're saying, you know, in a way, they are saying he committed corporate espionage? Like he was almost aware that he knew he was going somewhere else and he copied the files. He knew he was going to Oculus. They're saying he's a thief and then he's breaking all sorts of patents. And here's the context for it. This lawsuit did not start. He was over at Oculus for a long time. It did not start until they got bought out by Facebook for billions of dollars. And then suddenly the lawsuit started. Funny how that works. Speaking of funny, you know, when the story initially broke, Oculus was kind of the good guy. ZeniMax seemed like, you know, the jealous ex. But now that a lot of people have sort of, you know, fell out of love with Oculus because they have exclusive games, those are silly reasons. But some people, you know, harbor some ill will towards Oculus. Public perception's shifting a little bit here, so that's kind of awkward. I don't know. I don't believe for a second that John Carmack needs to steal those files and steal those tools to create anything at Oculus. He's a very smart person. If anyone could recreate their VR concepts in a different code, it's him. This guy's hobby is building rockets. I'm not kidding. John Carmack, when he's not working, when he wants a relaxing day off, he studies rocket science. He's a very smart guy. So you know what? I'm gonna assume that ZeniMax probably is not gonna win this lawsuit, or maybe they will. I don't know. I'm no lawyer, or at least not anymore. Got disbarred. Apparently, you can't flip off a judge 5 times. Moving on. This is the weirdest news story of the week. Justin Roiland. You might know him from Rick and Morty. Well, he's getting involved with video games beyond that Rick and Morty VR game. He is teamed up with Tanya Watson, who used to work at Epic Games. She worked on Gears of War and lots of other titles. And they've created Squanch Tendo, a studio that will be solely working on VR games and trying to make comedy games. According to Roiland, I'm most hungry... let me try that again. Take 2. The thing I'm most hungry for in the VR space are really strong but cool characters. a lot more personality, and just more story. I do appreciate the cool arcade stuff and the short form VR experience, and I have no doubt that there are studios out there that are they're making games that I desperately want to play, but it's something, there's a lot of fucking typos in the stories I found this week. But it's something that I feel I could bring the sensibility and comedic tone that we do on Rick and Morty to the VR medium. I want to bring that tone and character and personality and story and set it on top of a foundation of really strong, cool gameplay. Tanya, who used to work at Epic Games, had this to say: outside of someone like Tim Schafer and Double Fine, who make constantly great comedic experiences, I can probably count the games on one hand I'd consider genuinely funny. It's a distinct challenge in gaming. What makes you want to try to get into that space, and what makes you think we can do this? We can right the wrongs of some really bad games in the past. I gotta say, this is a incredibly ambitious project. Think about this. If you said, we're going to build a studio to make comedy games, already it's like, what, really? There just aren't that many people out there. And then you're like, on top of that, we're gonna make VR games. That's just two ambitious concepts merged into one. And I'm actually very excited for this. If anything, this makes me more hyped up for VR, because when I look at some of the stuff, it looks a little too, I don't know, self-serious, And whenever you see the videos online of people playing VR games, they're always trying to break the game. They're always trying to make something that's goofy or weird or funny, no matter how serious the game is intended to be. I think they could make a lot of money off of this idea, and I'm looking forward to it. I actually like Rick and Morty, and this guy is the voice actor from Rick and Morty, so you can probably expect a lot of his signature voices to be in the game. And as for that Rick and Morty VR game, no release date yet, but apparently it was cool enough that he wants to go whole hog into the industry. Neat. Let's move on. I've been saying that a lot this episode. We're always moving on, aren't we? The planet's always spinning, but we are moving on. Ian Milham has joined Crystal Dynamics. He used to work over at EA. He was an art director for the Dead Space franchise, and he even worked on Battlefield Hardline. He had this to say: I'm an admirer of Crystal's work for a while now, as they continue to deliver top-notch narrative and spectacle, coupled with deep systems and player choice. I'm very excited about where the studio is headed, and I'm eager to be a part of it. Ian, you're a dumbo, alright? You were making those stupid space games that nobody liked. Does anyone even remember Dead Space? The answer is no. I'll answer for you. The answer is no. And then you got to work on Battlefield Hardline. And you walked away from that to go work on Tomb Raider? What a dumbo. No, seriously, actually, this is kind of exciting because he's apparently going to be a game director for the Tomb Raider franchise. And that means that we're going to get more Tomb Raider, which is great news. Loved Tomb Raider. But I'm really curious because he's never directed a game by himself. I mean, he's been the art director, which I'm not taking anything away from that. That he is a director, okay? But let's just state facts. He's never directed a game. So I'm curious to see what he can kind of bring into the next Tomb Raider. I thought the very first one in 2013, the reboot, was incredible. I thought Rise of the Tomb Raider was just mind-blowingly good. Wait till you play that on PlayStation 4. It's going to blow your mind. You're going to be like, wow, this was worth the wait. I guarantee it. Don't mess this up, Ian. And what kind of a name is Ian? Come on now. On our next story, we are going to be talking about Remedy, the creators of Quantum Break. Aaron Greensberg, the Xbox marketing boss, was talking about Quantum Break, and he said it sold really well. It exceeded what we expected it to do. We're really pleased with how Quantum Break did. But just like every movie, not every game needs a sequel. Okay, yeah. No, I had a nice time too, but I'd rather we just be friends. Wow. Talk about like not even hinting at something. I mean, oh yeah, that game was good, but it's like movies. Not everything needs a sequel. So they have no interest in making another one. Speaking of sequels, though, a lot of people want to see another Alan Wake from Remedy. But once again, the very first game didn't sell particularly well. I mean, it sold so poorly that they actually gave the game away if you bought Alan Wake on PC and Xbox One. What does that tell you? I'm not sure what Remedy's plans are. They're working on that Crossfire 2 game, that Korean war title. Maybe that's where they're heading right now. Maybe that's just where they're going to scoop up some money so they can go back to their passion projects. I don't know. Next story we have here is about Capcom. They have partnered up with Humble Bundle to create their own Capcom Humble Bundle. Why does this matter? Why is this newsworthy? Well, for the very first time, this is about the home console space. Now, previously there have been, like Wii U bundles, the Nintendo Nindies, whatever they call them, independent games on the Wii U. There was a Humble Bundle for that, but now we have a major publisher in Capcom creating a Humble Bundle for the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4. The games included are kind of all over the place. Final Fight Double Impact, which is PlayStation 3. Resident Evil HD, which is on the PlayStation 4. Resident Evil 0 HD on the PlayStation 4. Kind of all over the place. They even have coupons for 45% off Street Fighter 5. This is just a very interesting idea. I think Capcom is just trying to get the word out that they still exist, and makes a little bit of money along the way. Humble Bundle splits up the money between themselves, Capcom, and a charity for every Humble Bundle. And you can actually decide how much money you want to go to where. And the more money that you spend, the more games that you get. I really think this is just PR for Capcom because everything they've attempted just hasn't retained attention, if you know what I mean. Like they announced something like Street Fighter 5, and then it comes out, and then a month later no one's talking about it. They announce Resident Evil 7, and it blows up. Whoa, Resident Evil 7, this looks awesome. And then it just falls off. Like they haven't found that thing yet in America, I should say, that really keeps their name in the papers. Over in Japan, people love them. Monster Hunter, all over the place. They adore that. But here, not so much. Bad news if you like movies. Angry Birds, the movie, apparently brought in $347 million. And the CEO of Rovio, Katie Leveranta, said, "We have started planning the sequel to the Angry Birds movie." I heard that movie was absolutely terrible. I heard nothing but bad things about that movie. And it's their own damn fault. I said they should get Danny DeVito. And this is before that whole Detective Pikachu thing. I said they should get Danny DeVito for that movie. Can you imagine goddamn bird flying over there? Oh, whoa! You can already hear it. Isn't it perfect? Their own fault. We are now getting to the charts of the chart park. We need to talk about the best-selling games in July in America. Keep in mind, some of these include digital sales and some of these don't, as the NPDs have started to track digital sales. Number 10 was Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege. That's cool that it's still doing very well. I've heard that they've retained a lot of players in that game, and they should. It's very different first-person shooter, far more tactical. Number 9 is Destiny the Taken King. Number 8 is Doom. This does not include digital sales. Number 7 is NBA 2K16. That is bonkers because that was just free on PlayStation Plus. That game is still selling well. And what are we, like 2 months away from the other game coming out? Ridiculous. Number 6 is Minecraft. That does not include digital sales. Number 5 is Call of Duty Black Ops 3. Number 4 is Monster Hunter Generations. That does not include digital sales because that is a 3DS game. Number 3 is Lego Star Wars The Force Awakens. That game is crap. Number 2, I'm sorry, that's not fair. I'm just bored with the Lego games. That's not fair. People work very hard on those, and kids really like them. But if you're an adult, get yourself to church. Number 2 is Overwatch. That does not include digital sales on PC because that went through Battle.net. And number 1 for the month of July 2016 in North America is Grand Theft Auto 5. A game from 2013 is the best-selling game for the month of July. Wow. Just let that set in. That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. I gotta say, if you have a PC, you want to play the PC version of that game. Just saying. I played them all. And I gotta say, PC version. By far the best. Love it. 60 frames per second. What more could you want? That actually is a game that I feel like makes a difference. Because there's racing elements and shooting. And yet with Grand Theft Auto 4, I don't like it at 60 frames per second. What's wrong with my brain? I don't know. Let's go to the cursed land of tea and crumpets known as the UK to find out where the best-selling games there. Number 10 is Minecraft Xbox Edition. Number 9 is Doom. Number 8 is Uncharted 4. Number 7 is FIFA 16. Number 6 is Rocket League. Number 5 is Grand Theft Auto 5. Number 4 is Overwatch. Number 3 is Lego Star Wars The Force Awakens. Knock it off, UK. Number 2 is No Man's Sky. And number 1 is FIFA 2016 because the UK likes their F1 games. Did I say FIFA? I meant F1 2016. That is awkward. Now let's go to the cursed land of trains, known as Japan, to find out where the 10 best-selling games over there. Number 10 is Mario and Sonic at the Rio 2016 Olympics on the Wii U. Stop it. Number 9 is Mario and Sonic at the Rio 2016 Olympics on the 3DS. Seriously, Japan, knock it off. You know what? That was because the Olympics were going on. If we come back next week and it's still on the top 10, I'm going to be upset. Tune in next week. Number 8 is Pokemon Omega Ruby / Alpha Sapphire on the 3DS. Number 7 is Minecraft Wii U Edition. Number 6 is Kirby Planet Robo. Number 5 is Puzzle and Dragon X Kami no Show Rio no Show on the 3DS. Number 4 is Dragon Ball Fusions on the 3DS. Number 3 is Yokai 3 Sushi Tempura on the 3DS. Number 2 is Tales of Berseria on the PS3. And number 1 is Tales of Berseria on the PlayStation 4. Tales of Berseria is a brand new game in the chart park, so that is why it's probably number 1. But what were the best-selling consoles in Japan? Let's go through the list. Starting it off with new 3DS LL with 22,435, PlayStation 4 with 17,596, PlayStation Vita with 10,027, new 3DS with 5,400, Wii U with 4,702, PlayStation 3 with 1,192, 3DS with 835, 3DS LL with 135, and in last place is the Xbox One with 52. What are you expecting? It's Japan. And that's gonna do it for the Chart Park, the land where money grows on trees. God, I already missed the money. But we must move on to bigger and better things. Or should I say smaller things? That's right, it's time to get tiny. It's time for Pocket Talk, Pocket Talk, Pocket Talk. Pokemon Go. You may have heard of it. And you might have stopped playing it. According to Axiom Capital Management, they have some data that shows in July there were 44 million daily users for Pokemon Go. But now, well, that's down to 29 million. In other words, they lost over a third of their users. Now, I'm sure there are people out there that are already going to say, yeah, man, it's because they got rid of tracking. Okay, if that's what you think. Fact of the matter is, Pokemon Go was always going to be a fad. And like I've said before, fads aren't something that just go away. Pokemon started as a fad, and it continued for years and years and years as a big property. Thing is, when something gets real big, real fast, the drop-offs are equally steep. They've lost over a third of their users. Is this a huge deal? Not really. It was bound to happen no matter what. It just probably happened a little faster because, I don't know, some people are really pissed off that they lost tracking. There's no reason to celebrate this. There's no reason to point at Niantic and say, haha, I told you so. They're still raking in the dough. And even with 29 million users, they are far ahead of many, I'd say about 99% of other mobile apps, including, some ones that aren't even games. Moving on. I keep saying moving on. What is up with me? Why do I want to keep moving? I don't know, man. This is the worst story of the week. Super Mario 64 DS has been re-released on the Wii U. That's right. For $10, you can replay the worst version of a great game. Not to mention, on the Wii U, you can actually buy the better original version for $8. So if you just decide, I want to waste some money, you now have an opportunity. Now for some good news, Loomis is back. Yes, Loomis, the PSP launch title, has a brand new game, and it's going to be called Loomis Puzzle and Music. It's going to be out on iOS and Android on September 1st and will cost $3. I'm going to buy it day one just to support the franchise. I hope it's good. In case you've never played it before, it's a puzzle game. You're dropping squares and you try and match the colors. There's always two colors, and it's done to music, and there's actually a line going across to show you a bar of music based off of the beats per measure. So some stages are faster, some are slower. meaning that it'll take longer for your blocks to wipe away. I just hope the music's good, because that's what it's all about. I have a copy of the Vita one that I picked up for, I think, $3 as well at Best Buy, because nobody bought it. Keep that franchise alive. It's fantastic. And like I said, that was Tiny. That was Pocket Talk, Pocket Talk, Pocket Talk. Let's take the mushroom. I told you, Pocket Talk. It's about small stories. We get through them fast because they're not very dense. Speaking of dense, we do have to talk about the Dumbos out there, the dingies out there, you know, those people that we like to call the idiots, of the week. So, I don't know about you guys, but I've listened to a band called Green Day. Have you? Have you ever heard of Green Day? Well, their bassist, Mike Dirnt, was recently in an interview when he was talking about violence. Here's what he had to say. My kids are growing up seeing things I never saw, like mixed martial arts. When that first popped up, people were like, oh fuck, that's fucking violent. And now they play it on TV in restaurants. I'm supposed to eat and watch this shit wherever I go? Nothing makes me hungrier than watching two guys in weenie bikinis kicking the shit out of each other. Video games are different too. You're actually in there shooting and killing people. And that has to take a toll, but I don't have any solutions. Now, I'm not a fan of Green Day. I mean, they do their own thing, they've got their fans, and that's fantastic. But this guy is saying that video games are violent. More violent than when he grew up. And so the internet responded, saying, stop saying video games are violent. Video games don't make me violent. Well, Mike, you are not the idiot of the week. Why not? Because he stated a fucking fact. All he said were games were more violent than when he came up. He's 44 years old. He grew up with Pac-Man and Defender and Frogger. Now we have things like Call of Duty and Doom. Well, I guess they had Doom in like the early 90s, but a more violent version of Doom. I mean, goddamn, I was playing Deus Ex recently, and I stabbed a guy through the chest, and there was blood everywhere, and then I picked up his dead body, and I threw it off a bridge. That is way, way, way more violent than anything on the Atari 2600, or even the NES, with the exception of Chiller. Besides Chiller, that's way more violent than everything else. But yet, we still have this knee-jerk reaction online. You can't talk about video games in any way that might appear to be critical or negative. Why not? That's how things get better. Shouldn't we acknowledge that most video games that are top sellers are violent or based around violence? I mean, I love Overwatch, and it is not very bloody, but you're running around and just beating the crap out of each other and shooting each other and stabbing each other and slashing each other. Why can't we just admit that we like violence? There's nothing wrong with that. And that, you know, maybe violence does have an impact. What kind of an impact? But it has to be something. And I see people all the time saying, no, it has no effect. It has absolutely no effect whatsoever. I don't know about you, but when I play a violent video game, I feel pretty good. I feel pretty excited. I'm like, yeah, that was fun. I feel something, don't I? Well, maybe other people don't have that same reaction. Maybe they have a negative reaction. And that doesn't mean we should, you know, censor video games or that video games can't be violent any longer, but why can't we be open to some sort of criticism or just a direct statement? Games are violent. It's cool. I like violence. Well, in video games, not in real life. Except for that one time when I was out in the woods and I found those campers. But I'm just saying, video games are violent. A dude is pointing that out. Relax. And so for everyone that is creating a crusade and calling the bassist from Green Day an SJW, is that just your go-to crutch word? God, get these kids at the source. You guys are the idiots, of the week. I wish we could end it there, but unfortunately we can't. Because we have someone else that wants to speak their mind, someone else that is a little ticked off, and we're going to talk to them right now in a segment we like to call Thank You for the Email. We have a voicemail from the wonderful, the always there, the rock of this segment. Really, he's the cornerstone of this segment because he writes and calls so frequently, and I love it. But this week, he's not a bundle of sunshine. Keon has something he wants to say. Take it away, Keon.
Hey, what's going on, Pressure Cast crew? How you feeling, Colin? How's everything going? I hope everything is going well. This is Keon calling from Baltimore. I just had a quick question for you, brother. Just wanted to know, do you think in this day and age, do you think that gamers, complain way too much? Case in point, really quickly, people get upset about DLC. They say the company's trying to rip us off. They're trying to get every penny out of us, every nickel out of us. But the thing is if you didn't notice, you don't have to buy the DLC. You know, game players, they get upset. They want to make death threats to developers. They want to feel like they're just robbing them of every dime and nickel, when I don't think that's the case. I think more people complain about gaming than actually are having fun and actually playing the games. You don't have to buy this DLC. You know, you should not be able to tell a developer how their story should go. I feel like if you trust that developer, that's a person or team that you trust, then go with their vision. You can look at it, see it. If it's something you don't like, then you can walk away, put your hands up and say, I'm good. But don't complain about every single thing. I don't know, Colin. Maybe I'm going off on a bit of a tantrum. Maybe I'm getting too old to understand these new game players. But in your opinion, do you think that gamers, this new generation of gamers, complains way too much? Just wanted to get your opinion. I appreciate what you do, brother. Thank you for always answering my questions. That's thoroughly appreciated. And with that being said, brother, I hope you have a great day, Colin. You take care, man. Bye-bye.
Keon, thank you for the voicemail. Really bringing the fire this week. Video game culture at large. Wow. Do we have a problem with bitching? Yes. And I'm kind of guilty of it too. I mean, we're already an hour deep into my podcast where every single week I stand on my soapbox and I say, this is that and that is that, and I just spout my opinions. Lots of people do. That's why we have message boards. That's why we have Twitter. And it's not exclusive to video game culture. Look at the way people reacted to the Suicide Squad reviews. Oh my God, they were trying to get Rotten Tomatoes shut down. Are you kidding me? Everywhere, people are freaking out, whether it's sports or comic books or movies or music, whatever. People are always overreacting. But video games seem to have a very different problem, I would say. You were just talking about the DLC in your comments there, and you said that people are always focused about, oh, you know, I don't like this DLC, get rid of the DLC. And you're saying, hey, if you don't like it, don't buy it. And that is the correct solution. But you know what? The difference between people bitching in video game culture and people bitching everywhere else, and I'm even ignoring the whole aggressive anti-woman, anti-empathy movement that is just weirdly creeping into video games. That's always existed. But the weird thing about video games is people are always talking about money. And, they're just... When a new Call of Duty comes out, they just say, oh, that's just a cash grab. It's just a cash grab. The people that make those games are just robots, and the people who play them are just dummies because they're willing to shell out their money. Or when they talk about a video game, they go, nah, not getting my $60. Nope, that's not worth full price. Look at what they're talking about with No Man's Sky. Oh, I'm going to get a refund. I'm going to get my money back. I want my money. Or when they like something, they even say, shut up and take my money. Oh my goodness, my wallet is hurting just looking at this. What is up with that? Now, don't get me wrong, video games are a pretty expensive hobby. I mean, every household has a budget, and they have to exist within there. But video games in the long run have been cheaper, or they're cheaper now than they've ever been before. And you look at all the sales and really affordable independent games, and also the fact that the price of video games is still $60 after a decade. Video games are being pretty fair about their price. And more importantly, why are we talking about the money? I can understand why businesses are focused on that, because they have to be, because they want to stay open, because they want to see a return in their investment, because they want to, they want to have money, they want to have a home, They want to have an apartment. They want to be able to eat, and they work hard for that money. They deserve it, especially when people are, willing to buy the game. So for a company, yes, they have to talk about the money. But why do we? Why do we talk about the money? We don't have to. We can talk about what we like about games. We can look at them critically and through level design. And when we don't like a game, and when we see something like a Madden or Call of Duty, which I'm guilty. When I was 14 years old, I was like, fuck Madden. Madden's just a cash grab. I was stupid. I was wrong, and I'll admit that right now. There's a lot of work in sports titles that I thought I knew better. I was wrong. But why can't we just talk about the things we like and look at things critically and really analyze games and where they're going and their features, and not just have this knee-jerk freak-out reaction every single time? Even when Pokemon Go took away the tracking, people said, well, you stole my money. I didn't steal your money. You gave it to them. And you don't need to worry about money. But I know why people do this. They want to be taken seriously. I play video games, but I'm an adult. I'm a grown person who likes video games. I'm very mature. Do I think that the latest Sonic the Hedgehog is a wise investment? Indubitably. What is this? What are we doing? Some people want video games to be taken way too seriously. And there's a difference between talking about games as an art form and analyzing them and deconstructing them and figuring out what makes them so enjoyable or what makes them not work. And then there's that other element of just people going, no, I've done the math and I don't think that this title is worth $60 because it doesn't have enough hours of gameplay in there, and I heard they have DLC and that would be an increase in investment, and I don't think that's worth it. It's weird, man. And then this isn't new, by the way. This happened way back. This is not a recent development. I remember back in the late 90s when people found out that, and I always go to this example, they found out that Parasite Eve from Squaresoft was less than 20 hours long. Like, outrageous. How dare they charge $50 for this? That's how it used to be. But the thing is, money comes and goes. Your time is limited. You are going to die one day, and you will never play another video game. So maybe don't focus on the money. Focus on your time, what you're doing and where you're spending it. And don't be angry about stuff. Find the things you like. I mean, if you're going to analyze the news, that's what I like to do. I like to sit down and look at where their prices are going. It's fun. It's a fun little game. I enjoy it. And I notice where they're making mistakes. And I do get angry at publishers. And I am disappointed by developers. And I don't need to lash out at them and bitch and moan and nonstop. Well, except for 2 hours every single Monday on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, TuneIn Radio, Google Play Music, and America's longest running independent newspaper at shepherdexpress.com. But besides that, I just let bygones be bygones. Unless I think they're actually making a mistake where they could be, increasing their investment. But that's an entirely different subject from, should I play this game? Was this game good? And, I don't know. Super Mario Brothers on the NES. Is it worth $60? See? It sounds kind of stupid. Keon, I don't blame you for being tuckered out by this nonstop bitching. But I'd hope to bring you a little bit of positivity by saying thank you for the email. Remember, 954-947-7377 at PressureCastPod on Twitter with the hashtag PressureCast and even PressureCast@gmail.com. You can find the links to all of those sources in the description below. I want to bring a little bit of positivity, like I said. And what brings out positivity like nostalgia? So let's take a look back at the past in a little something we like to call Strong History. We're going to be talking about the anniversaries that are going to be happening for the week of August 28th through September 3rd. But before we get on to those, I do want to point out that someone has actually leaked the GoldenEye remake that was supposed to be out on the Xbox 360. Someone actually found the source code and played the game and put it up online. In case you don't know, Rare obviously was bought out by Microsoft. They wanted to re-release GoldenEye 007. They tried to work out a deal with Nintendo, and unfortunately that fell through. Somebody tweeted at Phil Spencer, and what Phil Spencer said was, GoldenEye has always been a rights issue, not a getting code to run issue. And what he's talking about is that when it comes to James Bond, you'd have to work with the Broccoli family. Yes, the Broccoli family. They have the vegetable named after them. I'm not kidding. They own the rights to James Bond. They'd have to work with Sony, who, you know, at the moment of when they were working on that, they had the rights to James Bond. That's why they're releasing those films. Nintendo, who you know, oversaw that project with Rare, and they have to get all these people together. And it just came down to a money issue. But I've heard reports it was Nintendo that was holding up the whole deal. Everyone else was on board, but Nintendo wanted too big of a cut. And that was very selfish of them, because if you go and look up this video, it looks great. It looks awesome. Very, very, very reminiscent of the Perfect Dark, HD version that they released on the 360 only a couple years later. As to why Perfect Dark could be released, you know, not an original property. Maybe they worked out something with Nintendo. I'm not sure. I don't know the exact dealings with that. But let's get to the anniversary, starting it off with 10 years ago this week. Saints Row was released on the Xbox 360, one of the early great games on the 360. This is back when Saints Row took itself very seriously, and then as it progressed, it became more goofy. Original Saints Row, though, was pretty much just a ripoff of San Andreas with ragdoll physics. True story. Go back and play it. It's kind of weird. Also on the Xbox 360, Enchanted Arms was released. Another early game that a lot of people were very passionate about. On the PlayStation 2, Disgaea 2 Cursed Memories was released. An insanely dense turn-based RPG. Hundreds of hours of gameplay there. And that series is still going strong today. On the Nintendo DS, Star Fox Command was released. Which, not a great Star Fox game. You can actually play this on the Wii U Virtual Console. You have to control using you have to shoot or control using the touchpad. It's not great, and it's mostly just wave based. There's not much of a story in there. I mean, there is a story, but it seems inconsequential because all the stages are just, you know, very simple objectives in a very small arena. Also 10 years ago, American McGee's Bad Day LA was released on Windows. This was one of the most anticipated games on PC back in 2006, and when it launched, it was panned universally. Of course, American McGee worked on things like Alice and I forget the name of the other game that disappointed people, but this is considered the low point of his involvement in video games. Also 10 years ago on the DS, freshly picked Tingle's Rosy Ropeland was released in Japan. What is that game? I don't know. I just thought the name was funny. And lastly, 10 years ago, Mr. Smoozy Goes Nutso was released on Windows all around the world. I have a description right here. The evil invading Gorgons are tearing the fabric of reality, and the only thing in the way is Ed, the lovable cat from Mr. Smoozle's webcomic. The titular Mr. Smoozles has been turned into a mindless gun-toting lunatic, and Ed must avoid him, rescuing all his kidnapped friends, restore reality, and if he has time, revert Mr. Snoozles into the jerk he used to be. I have no idea what any of that means, but it made me laugh, so I wanted to share it. 11 years ago on the GameCube, Mario Superstar Baseball was released in America. Yes, they used to try and make Mario baseball games. Then they stopped. Also 11 years ago in the UK, the PlayStation Portable was released. Of course, it was supposed to be out in March of that year, but it kept getting delayed because of the high demand, and eventually was released in August in the UK. 12 years ago, Boktai, The Sun Is In Your Hands, was released on the Game Boy Advance in Europe. Why do I bring this up? Because that game actually had a sensor on the back that read sunlight because you were fighting vampires, and if you were in sunlight in real life, it made it easier to fight the vampires, and if you were in darkness, they were more challenging. Really cool concept. I'm just wondering how that worked out in Europe, because there are a lot of cloudy days over in the UK. Also, 12 years ago, Pikmin 2 was released on the GameCube, And that game goes for a pretty penny on the Wii and GameCube. If you have yourself a copy, you probably have yourself a lot of money. 12 years ago, Shrek 2 was released on the Xbox and PlayStation 2 in Sweden. Once again, this is not important whatsoever, but just know for the rest of your week, my God, I am living in history. Shrek 2 was released in Sweden 12 years ago. 14 years ago, in Japan, Panic was released on the PlayStation 2. Why do I bring this up? Well, because I had no idea that Panic was released on the PlayStation 2. I thought it was a Sega CD exclusive, where it was known as Panic Switch. So that just surprised me. I hope it surprised some of you. 16 years ago, there are an absolute smorgasbord of games. Ultimate Fighting Championship, the very first game based off of UFC, was released on the Dreamcast. I had the demo disc for that and used to play that a lot. It was pretty cool. It was funny because you could play as Frank Shamrock in there, and I'm not sure if he's in the new games, but maybe in the Bellator games. I don't know. On the Nintendo 64, Turok: Shadow of Oblivion was released. Many people regard this as the best in the Turok series. It was far more ambitious, a lot more like Half-Life, really. Also 16 years ago, Resident Evil Survivor was released on the PlayStation, a light gun game that was released without the light gun because of Columbine, meaning you were exploring around Raccoon City, and then when a zombie attacked you, you had to drag a little mouse cursor, drag the mouse cursor to try and get the thing lined up. It was not great. Also 16 years ago, Spider-Man was released on the PlayStation, one of the first truly great comic book games. This is before Batman, Arkham, anything, and this was just an amazing love letter to fans because you could play as all the different versions of Spider-Man, the black suit, what is that? The cosmic version of Spider-Man, where he has infinite everything. It was amazing. Also 16 years ago, Mario Tennis was released on the 64, the very first time Mario Tennis would be released outside of the Virtual Boy. And as a franchise that is shockingly still going strong to this day. Also 16 years ago, Pokemon Puzzle League was released on Nintendo 64 and Game Boy Color. I remember that being a pretty big title, though I don't remember if it was any good. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. 17 years ago, Shadow Man was released on the PlayStation. This is just one of those weird Acclaim franchises that people swear by. The voice actor in the game was the same person that played Candyman, I want to say, in the movie Candyman. I'm just going to stop saying that dude's name right now. Also, 17 years ago, Jet Moto 3 was released on the PlayStation, and if I'm not mistaken, that is the final Jet Moto game. There is a franchise that needs to come back. With all those amazing graphics, can you imagine, in case you don't know, you were on these like hover motorcycles flying around over rooftops wearing Mountain Dew logos. That series still has a really big fan base that are waiting for a sequel, so why not now? What better time than now? Also 17 years ago, Gauntlet Legends was released on the 64, a game I never really cared for, but once again, a huge fan following. Also 17 years ago, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was released on the PlayStation, and what more can you say? I mean, this was 1999. Think about that. Rather late in the PlayStation's lifespan, but Tony Hawk just made the PlayStation 1 blow up. And of course, it went to the Dreamcast, and it went to 64. But on the 64, the soundtrack wasn't the full songs, and the audio compression was kind of lousy. But that original Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, that really changed video games. Because it reintroduced the importance of score. For years, we had gotten away from having a high score, and that just brought it right back in there. It was very arcadey, very short-form gameplay. Everyone I knew loved Tony Hawk. Everyone. Even the President of the United States, Bill Clinton, loved Tony Hawk. True story. Also 17 years ago, Suikoden 2 was released on the PlayStation, Hybrid Heaven was released on the 64, Dino Crisis was released on the PlayStation, Bomberman Hero, loved the music in that game, was released on the 64, and Electronic Arts signed Michael Jordan to appear in future basketball games. I don't remember any of those games he appeared in, so hope they didn't spend too much money on that. 18 years ago, Metal Gear Solid was released on the PlayStation. It would debut in America 1 month later. So keep your eyes peeled. We'll probably be talking about that when it hits its US anniversary. Mega Man Legends was released on the PlayStation, which was a very strange game that a lot of people didn't like back then, including myself. But as time has gone on, it essentially did many things that Ocarina of Time gets credit for, even though it was developed way before Ocarina of Time. So think about that. Things like a lock-on system. Mega Man Legends did too, baby. And Final Fantasy VII was released on the PlayStation 18 years ago in the United States. A game that is so popular that the announced remake brought tears to the faces of grown human beings. I didn't cry, though. Shenmue 3, on the other hand, I might have freaked out a little bit. 20 years ago, Crash Bandicoot was released on the PlayStation. Nights into Dreams was released on the Sega Saturn. But most importantly, Die Hard Trilogy was released on the PlayStation. I actually bought a copy of Die Hard Trilogy not too long ago. Just an incredible game where you could either play a third-person shooter, a light gun game, or a time attack racing game through all three Die Hard movies. That was back when there were only 3 Die Hard movies. It was a better time. 21 years ago, The King of Fighters 95 was released on the Neo Geo in the United States, one of the best fighting games of all time. That would definitely be improved as the series went on. And the very first Command & Conquer was released 21 years ago, really kicking off the popularization of real-time strategy. You can't underestimate how important Command & Conquer was for that. Once again, a series that would drastically improve as it went on. Unfortunately, it's kind of been left in the dust after what was that? BioWare West or whatever their name was shut down, and the brand new Command & Conquer was canceled. 22 years ago, Live Alive was released on the Super Nintendo. That is a Squaresoft RPG, and we are going to close out the show with music from Live Alive. So keep your ears perked for that. But 29 years ago, in Japan, Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest was released on the Famicom Disk System. Holy shit, what a controversial game. The NPCs lie to you deliberately to confuse you. That's why everyone said, oh man, what a bad translation job in this game. But no, that was intentional. They were trying to point you in the wrong direction. And that was bullshit. For many years, I hated that game. And now I've grown to love it because I love Castlevania. But lastly, 29 years ago in the arcades of Japan, Capcom released a game called Street Fighter. It was a weird game. It basically pitted one person against the other, similar to Karate Champ, but it had some quirks to it. There were 2 buttons, and depending how hard you hit the buttons, you would have a more powerful or weaker attack. Sooner or later, though, many arcades reported the buttons were destroyed because people were slamming on them. So they re-released a new version that had 6 buttons: light, medium, and heavy. From there, they would work on a sequel that would eventually become Final Fight, and then a real deal sequel that would become Street Fighter 2. 29 years ago, you could arguably say Capcom really kicked off fighting games. Now, were there fighting games before? Certainly. But when you think of fighting games, close your eyes. I don't doubt you're thinking of Ryu and Ken, or Chun-Li, or Guile. And only 2 of those actually appeared in the original Street Fighter. But nonetheless, 29 years ago, Street Fighter. Thank you for making that, Capcom, because like I said, I love fighting games, and I love Street Fighter. And that's going to have to do it for Strong History. I'm getting a little teared up. What do you know? Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. So I think it's time to close out the show. Remember, if you want to contact the show, pressurecast@gmail.com, at pressurecastpod, and 954-947-7377. You can find the description and the links below on this YouTube page or your podcast app of choice. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can follow me at Dr. Crychop. That's at Dr. Crychop. I tweet a little something every day, just a little something, only 140 characters, so that's what I do. This upcoming week, what can you expect? Well, I'm going to have a video out for King of Fighters 14. It's an impression video, just giving a real quick, brief, description of how I feel about that game. I think you want to check that out. I already put up a video for Deus Ex Mankind Divided. It's a 5-minute review of the game. I think you should look at that. I'm going to be doing a episode of Worth It on that racing game, and an episode of Worth It on Attack on Titan, which is an anime I've never watched before, so I hope I can keep up with all of that. But yeah, that's going to do it this week. Like I said before, money comes and goes, but your time doesn't. You're going to die one day, so make your life worth it. But don't worry about the pressure cast. No. The pressure cast won't die, because the pressure cast is forever. See you guys. PressureCast, weekly video game news podcast, is solely owned and operated by Colin Tanner. Guests of the PressureCast are not employees or freelancers of Colin Tanner, the PressureCast, or VideoGamesAreDumb.com, and are not paid. Music featured on the PressureCast is property of their respective owners, and no infringement is intended. For more information, email pressurecast@gmail.com.